All right, I think recording is enabled. Welcome everyone to the Epoxy PTG for Cinder. We don't have everyone, but we have a good number of folks. Let's see. There's a lot to do. So we have the next 3 days. Originally, I was thinking Friday could be used for reviews, but it also can serve as some overflow for topics that we don't get time to get to, if that happens. So that day is can be defined in whatever way we need. We have coming up in 22 minutes, we have a cross project with Horizon. They have a feature gap set of things that they like to go through with us. So we're going to, I think we're going to be hosting them. They're going to jump on to our channel. So everybody, you don't have to do anything, just stay put, and they should jump on. And then after that, we can start getting through topics as quickly as we can. We can try to get through a couple before that begins. I wanted to start with just kind of a summary and a retrospective, and for that is so loud. I need to disable that. Sorry. Sound off. Hang on. Okay. So yes. So in terms of so Dalmatian is complete. The release was made. In terms of comparisons to previous releases, our numbers are pretty similar in terms of like commits, number of lines of code merged, so on and so forth. I don't. It's hard to look at those metrics and have a sense of like, did we really? How much of what we wanted to achieve did we achieve? There's a bit of a gap between lines of code and commits and like actually like overarching goals, but the numbers suggest where we should be in the ballpark. Thank you. And I think that's a good thing. I think we were able to review and merge the majority of what we were trying to get to. Certain things we didn't get to, certainly. So there's work to be done. And yeah, overall, we did all of the release milestone stuff, and so Dalmatian is out the door, and this is good. And according to the gate, it should be at least as good as the last release. So this is good. So again, thank you to everyone that contributed. I'm very grateful for that, and it's been a fun cycle. So I just would like to take a few minutes and open things up. If you have any thoughts or ideas about what went well, what you think, what you'd like to see go better, I will take notes. But I'd like to get if you have any moderate to strong opinions about things, be it good or bad. I'd like to create a space to have those opinions heard, so that we can hopefully try to make things more efficient and working a little bit better if we can. So yeah, if there's any thoughts or feedback, please feel free to speak up.
So not related to the retrospective, but after this, can we also do an introduction, like, because different contributors join with different purposes, so at least get an idea of who all will be there for the PTG.
Yes, absolutely. That's a great idea. Yeah, we'll if anyone has any feedback, we can do that, and then we'll jump into introductions and go through the roster.
So one general thought, like, it was a pretty good cycle, but in this cycle we have 2 less scores than the last cycle. So maybe there is space for new contributors to step up and take those responsibilities if they want to be active in the project. I'm referring to Pete and Gorka.
I agree. There aren't a lot of core reviewers, and so the proportion when we lose two is pretty significant, and will certainly be felt. So that's a good thing to note for sure. Anything else? I'm assuming that that this is indicative of things. We're in general agreement that things are running fairly smoothly. There's no burning buildings or anything like this, or major problems. If something comes up, though, please feel free to share it or put it on the Etherpad or reach out directly. You can put your nick next to it if you'd like, or you can just write it anonymously. Either are fine. But feedback is always appreciated. So I just want to keep that door open. So let's do introductions real quick, and so we can all know who's here and what our focus is and what we're interested in. I'll start. My name is John Bernard. I work for Red Hat as a software engineer in the PTL of Cinder for the Epoxy cycle, and I'm trying to generally for this cycle, my main focuses are the coordination of all the things, trying to keep us on track in terms of scheduling and milestones. I'm going to try to pick up Pete Zaitsev is a core that retired last year. Well, he didn't retire, but he moved on, and he had some patches for Cinder backup for encryption. I'm going to try to pick that up where he left off and get that merged if I can. I'm interested in the eventlet removal and making sure that goes smoothly, and then patch reviews generally. These are important things that help the project move forward. So those are generally my primary focuses at the moment. And we'll just go down the list. I'll let you guys self-select. Take it away. Not all at once.
What's worked in the past, John, is just have people go down the list in which they've registered themselves in the Etherpad. So next up would be Jan.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. That would be then. So I'm Jan Horstmann. I'm working with OSISM, and I haven't done any Cinder development yet, but I'm here because for the last couple of months I've been working on a driver offering local storage within the Cinder framework. Started developing a proof of concept within the Sovereign Cloud Stack project, and yeah, I would like to get feedback on that and just present the general idea later on. Thanks.
Eric, you're up.
Oh, sorry. Eric, work for Red Hat. Doing a lot of Cinder things. Not sure if I have any particular areas to talk about right now, but glad to be here again. Alan?
Yeah, hi, I'm Alan Bishop. Those may know I've been bouncing around in and out of doing Cinder projects. I haven't been very active in Cinder for the last couple of cycles, but I'm coming back this cycle. There's a long-standing bug that's been recorded that has to do with using driver-assisted live migration, but as it pertains to Nova and managing the attachments when it's time to swap volumes. I've got a cross-project session teed up with the Nova team. Definitely interested in having people attend that as well. That's scheduled for Thursday. I have to put some notes in the Ether pad, but I'll probably put them in the Nova pad and just add a note to the Cinder one, pointing people there. But that's going to be my main focus this cycle. If I do have time, as I hope, to spend on Cinder and not other things, then maybe that'll count towards me getting better review statistics towards becoming a core. So hope springs eternal.
Hello, this is Sai Kumar from NetApp India. And yeah, it's been 1.5 years. I'm working with Openstack-cinder or Manila. We are contributing to both, and it's going great. And yeah, thank you, Rajat, John, and yeah, I interacted with Alan also for ROS certifications. Thank you so much, Alan. Yeah, it's been great. Very excited for the next cycle. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, my name is Rajat. I'm based out of India, working at Red Hat. I take some upstream, some downstream responsibilities. So this cycle will be a slurp one. So I will be focusing on some features that I would like to get in, which we will discuss later in the PTG. So yeah.
Hi, I'm Saravanan. I'm from NetApp, working as an architect for storage. And from NetApp perspective, we are focusing more on Cinder. Maybe if you look at this PTG, right, and we have more topics lined up. And also this Epoxy release, we wanted to contribute more. And if you look at for Manila, right, we have done a lot, and even we became part of core reviewers. And we want to do more in this Epoxy release, and we also wanted to become core, maybe another 1 or 2 releases. And we have good rapport with Rajat. We worked on a couple of customer problems, and we have good rapport with you, John, and we worked with Alan and Eric. We wanted to continue this relationship for Epoxy release, and yeah, thank you.
Yeah, hi. I'm Manoj. I work for Red Hat. I usually focus more on deployment support, Ceph and Cinder. Yeah, this cycle I'll continue to focus on the same aspects of deployment. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm Jay Bryant. Used to be a core on Cinder, or am a core on Cinder, used to be a PTL back in the day. Currently working for Lenovo as their principal cloud architect. Not as deeply involved as I used to be, but still try to join in and help out where I can. So I will be here listening in.
Excellent. Welcome, everyone. Brian is also a core reviewer, but he's out today. But we're hoping to have him tomorrow. He had a procedure on his wrist done yesterday, so he's unable to manipulate a computer at the moment. All right, so we've got 9 minutes before the Horizon retrospective, or sorry, feature gap. Let's see. We have a couple of NetApp driver topics. I wonder, is it possible to get through? Is it possible to get through one of those, or should we hold and just wait for Horizon and get that out of the way, and then launch into it? What can we fit into a 7 or 8 minute block? Is it even possible? I'm not certain about how long these will take. So if anyone has a topic that is relatively small, speak up.
Well, I got a short one if you want.
Shoot. Hang on. We've got one. We've got one, AKA WAI. Did we get the? I don't think we got an intro. I just wanted to create a quick spot. If you would like to introduce yourself, please do so. Either way, welcome to the group. All right, Eric, go ahead.
Sure. So I didn't have this on the agenda yet, but I was thinking the other day, we have this mypy job to check type annotations in Cinder. For those not familiar, I mean, it's a way to kind of statically test code at a different level than unit tests. And it's been handy in a few ways for us as far as code quality and reviewability and such. But I wanted to mention that we decided, I don't know, 2 years ago or something when we were doing this, that we would leave the mypy package version unbounded in the gate. And the implication of doing that is that every time the mypy tool releases an update, which is twice a year or 3 times a year, it detects a new error that it didn't used to, and the gate job fails, and we have to fix it that day, which is usually fine. But now that we've done this 6 or 7 times, I'm starting to think that we should just pin it like we do the hacking tools and flakegate kind of stuff, so that it doesn't just break us every time a release is done. I would, I guess, say that this tool basically falls in the same category as those tools. And the general approach across all projects for things like the hacking and similar tools has been that they aren't updated by global requirements. They're just updated by the projects when the projects feel the need to do that. So I think this is sensible and hopefully not too controversial, but wanted to see if anybody had any opinions or any reason to think we should not do this.
I think having control over it is preferable. I mean, what would the downside is that you would, if you didn't keep up with updating it, you would lose out from newly added features in mypy.
Yeah, the trade-off is basically if we forget to ever update it, at some point, Python 3.16 will come out, and then it won't work with the version of mypy we have, and we'll have to update it for different reasons then. But I'm still generally working in this area just kind of as an ongoing effort. So I'm not terribly worried about things related to us forgetting to update it or whatever.
My sense is that unpinning it, having it unpinned, is going to create more pain than the occasional Python update where we become incompatible.
Yeah, I mean, the history has basically shown that every time it's updated, we have to go fix some stuff. Fortunately, it's usually only takes somebody like half an hour to do it. But it's just, it's unnecessary noise, basically.
Yeah, I think, pinning it makes more sense.
Yeah, I think as long as we don't pin it forever and just forget about this, it'd be great if somebody could, sign up to, periodically, even once a year, say I'm going to unpin it locally, fix everything, repin it.
Well, I will probably do that as I'm still gradually working on adding annotations to Cinder, and I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff we could discuss around that in general if we wanted to at some point.
Sorry.
Sounds like we've got consensus to at least pin it now.
Yeah, I'm not hearing any negatives. All right.
Right.
We got 2 minutes, so we'll just hang tight, and I think Horizon should jump on, and we'll do a feature gap session, which is the first of these I've ever done. So I'm not sure exactly what we're in for, but yeah, I think I've allocated 30 minutes. I don't know if we'll need all of it, but that's at least what we've committed to.
John, can we go on the next topic? Did you say?
So we've got in 2 minutes, Horizon is going to jump on, and we're going to do a quick cross project session to do some feature gap analysis. So we're gonna. I don't think. Well, now 1 minute. So I don't think we'll have enough time to start the next topic without cutting it. Yeah. So what we'll do is Horizon will come on, and then as soon as that's complete, then we'll launch into the rest of the agenda. And in general, we've got 3 hours today, starting from 30 minutes ago. So we'll try to get through as much as we can, so that that way, if we don't need all of tomorrow, or we want to rework some scheduling things, we have a little bit of flexibility.
Thank you.
They're working Etherpad for the feature gap things I put into the it's in the Etherpad, but I also threw it into the chat as well for context.
Should we ping anyone from Horizon team? John, you're invited.
Yes, I just reached out to Tatiana, but I haven't heard anything back yet. I'm not sure. I don't know what her. Let me see if I can get to this a different one.
Because on the PTG page, I only see one session of Horizon, which starts at 16 UTC.
Yeah, we had agreement over email, but it is possible that it's possible that there was a miscommunication. Let me try one other avenue, and then we will reschedule that. Try to fit that in somewhere in the remaining time, maybe tomorrow or Friday. I haven't heard anything, so I will when I am able to make contact, I'll see if I can reschedule that. Looking at the Etherpad, it looks like they have handled a few of the things in the Cinder sublist already, so maybe it's something we can squeeze in without too much trouble. So with that, let's just move forward with our agenda, and I'll try to handle that as it comes up. So that puts us at, we'll just start at the top of the list. NetApp driver features. The first one in the list is the certificate-based authentication.
Yes, Sean, we are here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. This is Sai. I would be going through the two features now. And yeah, can I share my screen, John? Or would you be able to open my Etherpad? Either of that is fine for me. Yeah.
Welcome to share. If it, I think you should have permission to do it. If you're able to go for it.
I'll share then. Thank you. Yeah, I hope you're able to see my screen. Oh. I'm not able to move this down, but yeah, I'll start with mine. So presently at NetApp, when we interact with the storage systems, right, we only have basic authentication, which comes with username and password to talk to the storage systems. But we would like to actually implement certificate-based authentication, and we have this request from a few customers. So we are proposing this in this release. So we actually have two types of certificates. One is self-signed, and second is third party, which is signed by a CA. So if you would like to go with self-signed, we will have two files. One is a private key file and the certificate file. I have given all the info in the Etherpad, so I don't really want to go through each line of that. And if it is a third party certificate authentication, it will be signed by a third party once. It's a certificate authority will be there, and we will have three files for that. One is a private key file, and other is a certificate file, and the third one is a CA signed certificate file. So I'm actually trying to scroll it down. Oh, yeah, it's going. Thank you. You see, so we have this, and presently our workflow works like this, only with the basic auth, which is login and password, that is username and password for the NetApp backend. In the cinder.conf, we will be providing these two. But in this release, we would like to add a few parameters to the cinder.conf and the NetApp options. These are called NetApp auth type, and NetApp private key, and NetApp cert path, and NetApp CA cert path. So this is like if NetApp auth type is not given, or if it is basic, we would want to have these two parameters. And if it is a cert type, we would like to have these three parameters. So if only these two are provided, which is NetApp private key and NetApp cert path, this is called self-signed. And all the three are provided, we will take it as a CA signed. So we would like to actually add these four options to the cinder.conf file from the NetApp side. It's completely on the NetApp driver changes. So we wanted to just present this. And we also have open questions. We will go to open questions once everybody is okay with this. And if anyone has any doubts, can ask. So these are the major 4 lines that we wanted to introduce in this release.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if there's any chance those options already exist as a common option name, i.e. something that wouldn't require a NetApp prefix.
Okay.
Maybe some of the older time Cinder cores know if we've got similar option names that are not vendor specific.
Yeah, I'd have to look. We might for like the certificate file, but I'm not sure if we have enough to cover all of them. That'd be something worth looking at in review for sure. I was also wondering with these options. So I think the premise is that if you don't set CA certificate path, it means you're using the self-signed model. So is there a risk there of somebody who's intending to use a fully signed certificate accidentally leaving it in self-signed mode if they leave off the last option or something?
Yeah, these are the options left to the customer. And today some customers write, and when they are on private cloud, they have only self-signed certificate. That is one mode of deployment we have on NetApp. And some customers, they use third-party provider, third-party CA. So that's what we are supporting both the kinds of customers. So if the customer has configured a storage system with only self-sign, so they can make use of that. If they have signed that with third party, they can make use of all the 3 options. So we provide both the flexibility to the customers, Eric. Yeah, there's a risk involved, I agree. Yeah, but it is up to the user whether how they configured the storage system of NetApp.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think maybe we'll want to make sure the driver, when it starts up, logs whether it's using signed mode or the self-signed, so that we know, so that basically people can know that it's actually configured how they think it is. But I think the options generally makes sense.
Thank you. And yeah, like Alan said, yeah, we would definitely look for the if there is any common parameters. I actually not aware, but I will go through everything, and if there is something, we will use that, Alan. Yeah, thank you for the feedback. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay, there was a little bit of a mix-up with Horizon, but it seems like we have a quorum of Horizon engineers here. So we will.
We can pause. We can pause. We'll go to Horizon and come back. Okay. Yeah. We'll do.
Sounds good. Sounds good, because that was scheduled for them, and I don't want to get them off track. Horizon, welcome to our PTG. I'm John Bernard. I'm the PTL for Cinder, and with us are a significant number of the Cinder contributors and engineers. We are happy to hear what you're working on and how we can help out.
Okay, sorry about the confusion again. My name is Tatiana. I'm the PTL for Horizon, and we have 15 minutes left, so I'll try to be as fast as I could. So we're here today for discussing our feature gap. We want to be aligned with you guys on this, because our feature gap is pretty obsolete. So if you can look at that, if somebody can share the screen, and we can quickly run through this. Also, that's a question for Horizon team. This bunch of features that are implemented already, and they are crossed out. I suggest to just delete it from the list, because it's really confusing to read. So if everybody's agree about that, we can try and clean up together all these features. And also a question for Cinder team. Do you guys have any features in mind that Horizon still does not have and needs to implement? So let's try and quickly look through this. John, can you share your screen with the other pod? Yes, thank you.
So Cinder is around 101. Line number 101.
Oh, yes, sorry about that. I think it's moved. Yeah, it's moved from my last link.
You should be able to. I'm hoping sharing works. For me, it's super dim, but I'm assuming everyone can see what I'm seeing.
Maybe I can try and share.
No, it looks good to me.
Okay, so one thing, on line 108, there is just a single word replication. And some time ago, I went to the Cinder, I think that was the Slack channel at Red Hat, and tried to figure out what exactly is missing from Horizon in respect to replication. Because it seems like Cinder is doing replication if it's enabled under the hood, basically, without the need of human intervention. So it would be nice to clarify some of those, because just a single word. I'm sure the person who wrote that was having something on their mind, but it was lost since.
Yeah, this would be presumably having operations in Horizon for failover and similar replication actions. I don't recall if Horizon for Cinder currently has a place where like admin type operations like that would live, as opposed to things that normal users are doing on volumes.
Well, we can always add that.
We have an admin panel, and there can be some specific actions for admins. I mean, admin panel for volumes.
Right.
What do users see now? Do they see if replication is enabled or what the status is, or is it just something that's completely invisible to someone using the Horizon?
As far as I know, we just don't have anything.
We don't have anything, yes.
So
and
probably status of the replication and so on. Replication. So displaying. Are there any statistics or something that we also could show?
The feature is generally enabled through a volume type through extra specs. So if for a volume type, if replication is enabled, then that flag makes it down to the driver on volume create, and the driver is then able to enable replication in whatever way that.
Okay, so we do display the volume type, so that I guess handles this.
Yes, yeah, you should be able to get at, for a given volume and its given type, you should be able to determine if replication is and should be enabled. As to the exact status, that would be, if the volume is available, it should be okay. It should be working.
I mean, if it's not useful to display this information, then we don't have to display it, right? Let's focus on things that are actually needed by the users.
I'm not sure there's a lot of information to display other than whether it's on or not. I don't think we really have much that's reported up on statistics or anything other than just the fact that it's actually turned on.
Okay, then.
That's correct. Yeah, we don't. It either works or we throw an error and there's an exception and the volume goes into an error state. So that's about it at the moment.
Okay, I'm going to remove the things that are stricken out, so just to make it easier to see what we need, what we can discuss. So quality of service support, is there anything? Is there any documentation you could point us to? That would be best if you can give us a link where we can read all about it for it.
Oh, there probably is for QoS. So for QoS, it's mostly going to be tied to the volume types, but I think you have to create a QoS type that's associated with the volume type, or create a QoS spec. I forget the exact term.
So we would basically need a whole dialog for creating that thing, right? It's like a record.
So you create a QoS spec, I guess we call it, that's associated with a volume type, and that would have a handful of fields like read IOPS and write IOPS and total IOPS per second. And there's a few other similar ones in there, but
and then you assign that spec to a type. Right?
Yeah. So I just found the doc for this, which I'll paste here. I think this gives a pretty good idea of what the kind of operations are for how that's done.
So I have one topic coming from Horizon to Glance, to Cinder, sorry. And that is about the direct upload mode of images. So right now, by default, the way Horizon uploads images, if you use the like web browser dialog for this, is that you upload the file onto Horizon's server. Basically, it's saved on the disk where Horizon is running, and then Horizon uses an API call to upload it to Cinder. And that has several problems. One of them is that it's slow because you are copying the file several times. Another one is that there are limits that the Apache allows you to download files of a certain size, and usually you have to configure bigger limits, but still there is a limit. So usually you can't upload files bigger than 4 gigabytes and so on. And we have a direct upload mode, which actually makes Horizon talk directly to Cinder from the web browser with JavaScript. And that's much faster, and also there are no limitations. The only problem is that you have to have cores configured on the Cinder side, and of course the Cinder endpoint has to be publicly exposed for this to work. Right now we are working on the Horizon operator for the Kubernetes, for the OpenShift deployment of OpenStack, and it would be nice to have this course configured in Cinder by default, so that the direct mode could be enabled in Horizon by default. I wonder if that would be possible with the Cinder operator.
So the direct upload is for Glance images?
Glance. I'm sorry. Yes, I got it. Yeah, I'm wasting your time. I'm sorry. I got it mixed up. Yeah.
No, okay.
Okay, anything else we can talk about?
Do we support encryption in Horizon?
In what sense?
There is the ability to create types for it.
Okay, so we can create encryption types with Horizon.
Yeah, well, we don't have anything in particular to support encryption, but if you have defined types of volumes, you can select those types from Horizon. So I assume that's what you need to do.
I don't use Horizon very often, but I feel like you can create encryption types in there, if I remember correctly.
It's possible. I just don't remember that function.
I think it's possible, yes, but we can double check it if you can point us to some documentation. But just I don't know, we can just mark it here.
There probably are some feature gaps for Cinder APIs, but I don't really know off the top of my head what they are. It's probably worth us surveying this stuff a little bit and what else.
So there is, speaking of APIs, we are going to be migrating to using OpenStack SDK instead of the Python Cinder client, because Python Cinder client apparently is going to be deprecated at some point. So do you have anything, I don't know, any advice for us on this, or anything you can help us with this?
With the current state of OpenStack SDK, we have a lot of things missing. So I would not recommend switching right now. Like, I have a doc somewhere which mentions all the gaps that we have in SDK.
Do you happen to have a link for this? That would be super helpful.
Yeah, I can just find it.
Thank you.
And those are gaps that we're chasing anyway for OpenStack client CLI feature gaps, right?
For CLI, we have most of the work done. I think, as per my knowledge, we have all the patches proposed. So OpenStack client right now uses Cinder client for most of its operation. But when we add support for something in SDK, then at least I make sure to add that SDK path in OpenStack client as well. So OpenStack client currently uses a mix of SDK and Cinder client.
Okay.
Okay.
So what are your plans about this exactly? Just to wait until OpenStack SDK is in the good shape and then switch to it completely? Just so we know, because we also need to know what to do.
At some point, I was driving this work, but I haven't looked at it recently, and I'm not sure if there are enough contributors in the SDK team to get that gap filled. So
just to make sure. So OpenStack client is not getting deprecated, at least for Cinder, for now.
For at least Epoxy.
You mean the Python Cinder client?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that's on our list for this cycle. So it's something that we need to move towards, but we've been our movement towards that has been pretty slow.
Okay.
Okay, that's good to know. Yes.
Yeah, that means we don't have to prioritize that as well. Thank you.
I had a few things. So one of the features that I implemented in Cinder was the default volume types per project. I'm not sure if it's there in Horizon, but it was, I think, around Yoga or Yoga Cycle.
Okay,
so
thank you. I'm putting it there.
Yes,
we will check. We will check on this.
I think I remember something has been done about that, but we will check. Yes, thanks for bringing it.
Okay.
And so the key to that is that's something you can do when editing a volume type, or is it outside of a normal volume type thing?
So once we create a volume type, we can do an API request to set it as default for a project. So we need to provide the volume type ID and the project ID, and that creates a database entry for that project's default.
Okay.
And another thing was, so I think Horizon supports rebuilding instance, that API, but I also added support to rebuild a volume-backed instance, which previously didn't used to work. So it has some new parameters, at least from CLI side, to pass to make it work. A new micro version and a new parameter as well, reimage boot volume, something like that. So maybe the existing API just needs updating with the new parameters to make it work.
Okay, thank you.
How often does Horizon update the micro version being used to talk to Cinder?
Only when we really have to. So basically, Horizon even can, so in some cases, mostly with Nova, we make several connections with several different micro versions, depending on what behavior we need. And we only basically update micro versions when there is some feature that we absolutely need.
Yeah, the implication of that, as far as looking for feature gaps, is that there are some things that we would have added that you just aren't getting because they haven't been opted into. I'm thinking of things where we added seeing the encryption key ID when you look at the details of a volume. If you opt into a new enough API version, it'll show up there, whereas before it wouldn't. And so there's probably some functionality like that are not whole operations, but small behavior changes in operations that you would want to opt into that probably just nobody has really considered yet.
Right. Do you have any way of listing that or finding that easily?
Survey the API version document.
Right.
That would be good hints.
Yeah.
Okay. We can look into that as well. So we have a next cross-project session starting. So thank you very much for this. This is very helpful. We will come back to you with questions once we actually get to working on those things. So thank you very much.
Thank you all. Just really quickly, we have our weekly meetings on Wednesdays, and I'm more than happy to try to schedule and coordinate and accommodate ongoing discussions in those meetings. So just let me know what I can do, and we'll try to make it as painless as possible.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. That's exactly the time that we have our weekly meeting, but that's fine because we're usually wrapping up earlier. So that will work perfectly, actually. Okay, thank you, and we're going to run to our next session.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.
All right. Hopefully that was productive. I don't use Horizon. I I'm not even sure I've seen it within the last cycle. So I don't have a sense at all of what the state of the union is over there.
Yeah, I think it would
like,
probably. I think it would make a lot of sense from our side for us to survey some of the micro version changes over the last few cycles and see which ones we want to point out that, hey, if you opt into this, you'll be able to do more things, or enable, seeing various info. And because there's a handful of those operations tied to micro version changes that, like, it's the same operation, but now you can do it in a state you couldn't do it in before, and that kind of stuff. That we probably should be telling Horizon, you might want to opt into this. So I guess I'm saying we should put that on our collective backlog for the Cinder group to try to make sure we look into that.
I did that. I added it as a bullet in my sort of ad hoc meeting minutes that I'm trying to keep up to date. I'll go through all this and compile a summary, and so hopefully it'll all make more sense later. Yeah, but I agree, that is worth looking at. Their list of feature gaps was shorter than I expected, so maybe that's a good thing. Okay, let's we're an hour in. Let's keep rolling. I think I may have cut off the last little bit of the certificate-based authentication for NetApp. If you would like to continue, and we'll just keep moving. Go ahead.
Yes, I'll resume from where we stopped. Okay. Yeah. So we were here and we just wanted to discuss the open questions. So first question is that for container-based deployments like Red Hat, like ORASP, Kola, Ansible, so how these files, what we are going to implement now, will be added to the particular containers. Like say if now we have a NFS shares config path in cinder.conf like this. If we are giving like this, it is automatically getting copied to this folder inside the container. If you say in the Red Hat, right, or OSP. So how these files will be added? Do we need to implement this logic for Red Hat and Kola? Anybody has any idea on this?
Well, I can't speak about Kola, but I can speak about the Red Hat stuff. It's going to depend upon the Red Hat version. The path that you referenced, the var lib config data thing, that applied to Red Hat's previously latest release, RHOSP. There's a new version of Red Hat OpenStack out called RHOSO.
Yeah,
and the mechanism for deploying it is quite different. It uses OpenShift on the control plane, and you have much greater control over how things get put into cinder.conf. So I think really the summary is that we've got you covered. There really won't be anything specific that you're going to have to do to Red Hat's deployment tooling to support these new parameters. You can reach out to me, outside of this meeting, and I can give you details. But it's quite Red Hat specific, so I'll leave it at that.
Awesome. Thank you, Alan. Thank you so much. Yeah. So the second one is that any of you feel that do we need to use the trusted store for the certificates that we are giving now? Like if we give that Cinder service reads from there and use it, or also is there any trust store already there in Cinder, or if needed, do we need to add one?
I don't think there's a requirement to use one.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I think people at various times have thought about things like storing these certificates in Barbican and referencing, something in the Cinder config to tell you where to get it from Barbican, but I don't think there's many drivers or anything doing that.
Okay. Thank you, Eric. Yeah.
So as Aaron was saying previously, I've added a link to some Cinder cert options that might be useful. And I don't see any driver using them as of now, but you can try that.
Sure, Rajat. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. If any doubts on this topic, if not, I'll go to the next one. Yeah.
One quick question, just what you've listed in your Etherpad looks like either, it looks very much like a spec. Has that already been submitted to the specs repository, or is that going to come in?
The next topic?
No, just for certificate-based authentication view.
It is going to come in, John. Okay, we'll be writing it.
Yeah, we will write a spec. Yeah.
So in the past, we haven't required a spec for driver-related features, but I mean, if it's needed, then we can propose that.
Yeah, I guess it's not necessary, but this looks awfully a lot like what would be in one. So you certainly could throw this in there if you wanted to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, both of you. Yeah.
Just so that it's sort of like it's more codified instead of in an Etherpad. It might be useful for other drivers that follow or reference.
Yeah.
There could be some value in that.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. Go ahead, active.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. I'll just share. I'll be sharing the Epoxy PTG Cinder page only. So yeah, actually, we would like to extend the support for the NVMe driver as well, for the active support. We have been doing this since last 2 releases. Bobcat we did for NFS, and for Caracal we did for NFS, and Dalmatian we did iSCSI and FCP. So there is one more driver we would like to add this release, that is NVMe. So we will follow the same approach how we followed for the last 3 protocols. We will be implementing failover and failover completed methods as proposed in this spec. And the same, it's basically the same idea of active. It's just that we just wanted to bring this to you guys. Nothing of a presentation. We just wanted to inform you guys that we would like to do this. Yeah.
Currently, the NVMe driver works with TCP.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
FCP will be planning next release. Yeah, right now NVMe TCP we support.
Yes. That's all from our side. Any questions? We are here to answer. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you all.
Thanks. I'm reordering the agenda a little bit. Jan, I've moved your driver proposal up. If you're ready, you're welcome to launch into that one.
Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, as I said in the introduction, so I've been working for some time on adding a driver which serves local storage in Cinder, and I've started writing a proof of concept, and I think it's in no shape to be upstreamed yet, and but I'd like to get feedback on the general idea, and well, I think it's a pretty new paradigm in Cinder, so there might be some edge cases where this doesn't fit very well, and I'd like to get feedback on that as well. So so maybe all these problems which are there maybe add up to this driver not being upstreamable, and I'd like to know that as soon as possible. But maybe this also so maybe this idea, but it's also worth to make this work. So I've prepared a couple of slides, if that's okay, to showcase the driver. I think I I'll have to share my screen, and hopefully that will work. Feel free to jump in if there are questions, or if I've been, babbling on too long about anything. So let's see if that works. So are you able to see the screen share? Not yet, probably. All right, cool. So that didn't work. Okay, so apparently I'm not able to share my screen. Let's see.
If it is publicly available, maybe one of us could share it.
Jan is either incredibly still or his machine has frozen. Hopefully he'll jump back on in a minute. I'm interested to hear about what he's proposing. We'll give him a minute to possibly reboot. While we're waiting, does anyone yeah, there we go. Does anyone use the PTG, like the little like colored chiclet things for determining like what we're talking about? I haven't forgot to manipulate the IRC bot. I'm wondering if anyone even that's on the radar for anybody at all.
Well, they show on the page for the PTG schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's mostly helpful, I think, for people who are trying to jump from different sessions.
I updated that for the previous topic. I will just update it for this as well.
Thank you. Jan, it looks like we can see your screen now.
Yeah, thank you. Am I still up? Sorry about that. So you can see the screen share, and you can also hear me well.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I've prepared a couple of slides, and I'll quickly go through motivation because I think it's not controversial. and then just some general cloud aspects, and then I'll describe a bit more about the driver concept. So yeah, let's start. So just quick motivation. So why do I think local storage in Cinder is worthwhile? So local storage in general mainly boils down to, I think, two reasons. One is economics, so it's low cost. So small scale deployments, edge clouds benefit from using local storage directly. Also, little operational knowledge. SCS can be very complex. So this, I think, local storage can really lower the entry barrier for using OpenStack. And the other big point is performance. So if you want, if you need low latency, then there's nothing better than local storage. The downside being, of course, that the low latency is bought by being local, so it's not highly available. And in OpenStack right now, there's Innova root or ephemeral storage, which is bound to the instance lifecycle. And yeah, I think we've long ago stopped thinking in terms of instances, but rather went to applications, and we want to bundle applications in containers and just choose the appropriate amount of storage dynamically. There's also, I think, the possibility to use PCI pass-through for NVMe drives. So this would give you fast local storage, but it's bound to the host it's run on. So this leads to one thing this driver should support, I think, which is live migration, because otherwise it doesn't add too much value. So live migration should be possible. Just some general remarks, or maybe are there any questions regarding this, or any feedback?
Well, you say live migration. Is that going through just the generic Cinder path, or actually doing it from the driver itself?
No, I meant instance live migration at this point. So I think instance live migration should be possible.
Oh, gotcha.
With a local storage driver, because otherwise there's not that much added value, I think.
Well, it just depends on the use cases. I mean, I mentioned this because I prototyped up a local storage mode for our LVM driver. And for that particular case, it was basically just going to be, you don't get certain things like migration.
So that was just using local storage, which was just bound to the host, and no movement or no transfer of storage between nodes, right?
Right.
Okay, so and that is exactly what I would like to add with this driver. So if you think about your deployment and you've got your hypervisors, and then there's a mapping of multiple volumes to one instance, if you don't consider multi-attach, which I won't for this driver. And if you want to keep your volumes local, that means that during attachment, if they are not by chance on the same host as your instance, then you will have to move them. And this movement of data should be as transparent as possible and as quick as possible, which means a driver would need some sort of transfer mechanism, which just lazy copies data between one host to another, so that the volume can be instantly attached to the instance. And if we want to implement this within the driver framework of Cinder, then that means that the Cinder volume service or a Cinder volume service would need to be run on every hypervisor, which has a slight security impact, because that means that database credentials need to be on every hypervisor. which I think is something Nova tries to avoid. But yeah, I think well, Cinder wasn't designed with this implication of the Cinder volume service being run on a hypervisor. So that's, I think, something which should be kept in mind. And yeah, so there needs to be a way to transparently migrate volumes from one host to another on at least attachments of volumes. And so this means it's not 100% local, but it will be local again most after volume transfer. And one way to do that, to transfer data from one host to another, is to use the device mapper clone target. And the device mapper clone target is a device mapper target, and it references 3 other block devices, a destination device, and a metadata device, and a source device where the data is currently. And the source device could be any kind of block device. So that means it could also be a block device which is is transferred over network via iSCSI or NVMe or Fabric or NBD, I think. So just any protocol really. And the way it works is that the clone target, well, it relies on the metadata device, and this metadata device holds a table for every block mapping where this block resides currently. So when you initiate the clone target, all blocks will be mapped to the source device. So if you read from the clone target, it will look up the metadata table and check whether this block should be read from the source or from the destination device. And at the same time, and then it will go and read the block from the respective device. And at the same time, the clone target will start copying data from the source device to the destination device. And at the same time, for every block that's copied, it will update the metadata that this block will be read or can now be read from the destination device. So if you do writes, the write will go straight to the destination device, and in the metadata there will be an update that this block has been written locally and is now residing on the destination device. So with this device mapper target, you can transparently copy your data from the source node to a destination device, and writes will always be local. So writes will always go to the destination device. And just for reads which haven't been transferred yet, the clone driver, the clone target talks about hydration here. So the copying of data from the source to the destination is called hydration. So yeah, so anything that hasn't been copied from the source to the destination will just be read remotely. So as I said, writes purely local, and anything that's read is either local or it will have latency penalties of the underlying network protocol. So with this, as I said, I would very much like to do live migration with this driver, and it is possible. So if you think that an instance on node 1 might write to the source and is going to be live migrated on node B, then Cinder for this scenario allows multi-attachment on the second node. So we can prepare the volume on the second node with a clone target and as soon as the instance is transferred, writes will stop on the source node and start being written on the destination or to the destination device. So the only thing we need to keep in mind for live migration is that we cannot start hydrating data immediately with setup of the clone target. We'll have to set up the clone target with hydration disabled at this point and just enable it later on when the instance is migrated. There's a couple of things to keep in mind. Of course, there's additional failure modes with this setup. Sorry?
I think I was just scratching. I don't think he was. I think he was just scratching his. It looked like he was raising his hand, but I don't think he was. I think you can keep going.
Okay. So there are some additional failure modes. So if, of course, there could be disruption or a failure on the source node or a network partition, which would lead to I/O errors, read errors, if the block is, if the data resides on the source. And that usually translates into the file system being read-only and the data being unavailable. The thing is, the device mapper clone target retries indefinitely. So the situation is recoverable once you set up, or once you bring back the source volume, re-export it and initiate the connection to the target. You can, you pretty much have your data back. So the situation is recoverable. And if there's a failure on the destination node, well, yeah, that's the part about local storage being not highly available. Then, of course, the data is not available until recovery. But after reconstructing the clone target, data will be available again. And another thing, so once hydration is done, so all data has been copied from the source to the destination, and we're only going to use the destination, the clone target may be replaced by a linear device mapper target. So that's just a simple suspend, load, and resume on this device mapper target. And then you're left with the linear device, with a linear target, which just maps directly to the destination volume. And at that point, you can get rid of the metadata device and also disconnect the source volume and later on remove the source volume. And with that, we have transparently transferred the volume from one host to the other. And the only thing to keep in mind is that we're now having a linear target on top of the destination block device, and that's going to be a setup. Since this is the end state of a volume transfer, and this target is in use by the instance, we cannot just get rid of this. So the driver I've came up with just uses this setup for volumes unconditionally. So every volume is created with the underlying block device and another linear target on top. So we just always have the same setup. And yeah, so this method can be used within a Cinder driver to transparently migrate or I say migrate, but a lot of these words have already been taken. So I'll probably use transfer. So this can be used to transparently transfer volumes on attachment or on live migration just to the node where the instance is. Some design goals for these drivers. I've setup. So I wanted to stay within the Cinder driver framework. So of course, this could have been implemented as a separate software stack with its own communication and an API in front, and then the Cinder driver just being a stub driver which calls the API. But I've wanted to stay within the Cinder driver framework and do this within the Cinder volume servers. And I've also wanted to build this on top of the Cinder LVM driver, so that, because it already does all the volume management using LVM2, which is already there, so there's no need to re-implement that. So it builds on top of the LVM driver. And the key idea to implement this is that, as I said, the Cinder volume service is run on every host, and upon attachment, a new volume would be created. You have a Cinder volume which is residing on with one service, or it has a host property. So this Cinder volume service will get the RPC for creating or for attachment. So the idea is that by using RPC, we contact or we create a new volume on the Cinder volume service on the destination node, and that volume will be based on the device mapper clone target. And then we use the same mechanism that is used in volume migration in Cinder, is to switch volume identities by setting name IDs, so that the newly created volume, in fact, or the current volume object, in fact, points to the newly created object straight away. And then we can immediately return a local connector on behalf of the remote volume service, which can then be used to connect the volume locally. And then a periodic job is run in every Cinder volume service within the driver, which supervises clone targets and cleans up when the transfer is done. So it watches the clone target for finished hydration and then loads linear target, removes the connection to the source volume and then deletes that. And that, that's the basic idea of the driver. So the RPC calls within the Cinder volume service, we need, for this to work, we need to transfer a bit more information than is possible with just the plain RPC calls. So there's a need for a side channel, and initially I tried to encode this into volume status and migration status, but that turned out to be not a really good idea, and too limited. And then I stumbled upon volume admin metadata, and I've been using this volume admin metadata to communicate certain properties which are required, like when you create the new volume on the remote host, it needs to know the source volume to connect to. And there's also a couple of scenarios where a remote connection is needed, like host-based volume migration. This always happens on the source node, so we need to remotely connect the destination volume. Everything else doesn't make sense. So that's one of the questions. I think I've seen one other driver using volume admin metadata, so I'm not sure if this is an appropriate side channel or not. So maybe
there's probably a better one. I think some drivers, I think I missed exactly what you're wanting to put in there. But some drivers are doing a similar thing with a different field, I think.
So
I'll have to look at.
Yeah, what I need is a way to communicate the source volume. So an ID, a UUID of the source volume, and I also need to have some Boolean field whether to enable the hydration for the clone target, and also I'll need a field to communicate whether I want a remote connection or not, or whether I'll just want a local connection. So whether whether to use the configured target protocol for the connection. If we want to go into details of the driver concept, there's
I've got a question, a couple of quick questions, if you've got a second. So one, DM clone, how new is that? Like, I'm wondering, like, is there even a chance we could test this even in a third-party CI job? Like, is that something that's been around for a while and is stable, or is that a relatively new feature added to the device mapper layer? I'm wondering, like, what the I guess the age and maturity of that feature is. I don't know off the top of my head. The other one is presumably when a request comes into the API, like a snapshot create, that can't go to just any Cinder volume instance anymore. It has to go to the Cinder volume instance that is locally hosting that volume. And maybe the API pathways are not super clear in my head, but can we do we do that? I guess that question's for the larger group. Can we handle that? Like, if a request like that comes in, I guess we can map it. We can map it to where the volume currently resides and make sure that that particular Cinder volume instance receives the API request, say snapshot create. Yeah. And the other question is, if we migrate a volume from one local machine to another and it has snapshots, we're going to have to migrate the whole chain. And so the pathological case is a little concerning. I'm wondering what that looks like. Is that these are just these are things that are floating in my head at the moment.
Well, as far as operations that are bound to a certain host, it's the same as the LVM driver, I think. So that should be fine.
Is anyone aware of anything up front that would be a showstopper for this kind of thing? Just as a first pass?
I think the concept works in general. There's a lot of details to absorb around the moving data with DM clone and all that stuff, but I don't know. It seems like it would work to me.
I think what Eric is trying to say is this sounds cool, but
Yeah.
it would be really cool to have like a proof of concept. Like, if we could see this working and get a sense of like how the data moves through the API into the volume, what happens when we try to migrate and clone, and like being able to see all of this would be like, if you've got a working prototype, that would be.
Yeah, I've got so many like meta questions that I'm not really sure where to begin. It sounded like there's two almost orthogonal concepts. One of them is to be able to present local storage to an instance. And that sort of suggests to me that the local storage are considered to be in different availability zones. You know, this local volume is only available in the availability zone associated with this host. And I had a question before, but I think you answered it, Jan. You do imagine a separate Cinder volume service running on all of the nodes, because without that, I wasn't sure how you were going to make this work, but you did I believe, say that, yeah, there would be a volume service running. Anyway, concept number one is the ability to consume local storage. Great. Concept number two is what happens when I want to migrate the volume from one host to another? How's the data going to get there? And it sounded like this whole device mapper clone is just a new way of getting it there, as opposed to more traditional ways of doing a migration, where the Cinder volume service running on host 1 would open up a connection to host 2, and it would just DD the data over. So I don't know what this device mapper clone necessarily offers, because questions that were going through my mind are, who's opening up these ports and managing the connections between them if you're going to be using something other than Cinder's native mechanism for providing, for migrating volumes? I just don't know enough about the device mapper clone and who's going to manage it. And, you know, as John had asked himself, you know, how available is this? Anyway, I'll stop there.
Yeah, let me try to answer some of these questions. I don't know if I got all of them. So the device mapper clone target, it has been in the Linux kernel since version 5.4, I think. So it's been a while, and I have a proof of concept I could demo right now if you want to see how it works, at least with the basic actions, volume actions like attach, detach, live migration would work. So I could show that if we have time and if that's something you want to see. What I don't have right now is snapshot support. I've thought about it, and I've tested the concept kind of, and I think someone mentioned that you'd have to transfer all the snapshots, and I think it's possible, but I haven't implemented that in the proof of concept yet.
So we have, I think in general, we'd like to, I think in general, we want to be able to say, yes, let's do this. There are some operations that are requirements for a Cinder, for it to be a valid Cinder driver. So snapshot support, I think, is one of these required API calls that must be implemented. Other things like replication are optional. You can still be a driver and not support that. And so I guess there are a lot of larger questions as we start to wrap our minds around this. I think a demo would be useful. It might be useful to hold that and push that into maybe the back once we've covered the topics. Once we've made a first pass to the topics, then we can come back to a demo because there's going to be a lot of questions and it's probably going to open up and take a lot of time because we're all going to be fascinated about that, I'm guessing. But I guess in the short term, my sense is that if you can implement the required API calls and provide this functionality, I think then there's a compelling argument to have it be considered for inclusion. As a general, that's what I would say to any driver implementer, essentially. But the same goes for this one.
Okay, there are maybe there was one other question about the added value of the clone target versus just migrating the volume. So the added value is that with the clone target, you have access to your data instantaneously on the remote host, and that writes will be will go to the local destination directly. So
yeah, the ability to work with that volume on both sides during the hydration operation, as opposed to our traditional iSCSI like attach and
DD.
Yeah, that is a
totally agree. Yeah. The clone sounds pretty cool. It almost sounds like, speaking just for myself, I got to go read up on this clone thing because it sounds interesting. And if I understood it, it probably would answer a lot of my immediate questions about how it pertains to Cinder. Things like, how are we managing this iSCSI or or NVMe connection between them? Maybe those are already answered if I knew a little bit more about the clone target.
Well, if I understand correctly, the DM clone part is only operating on block devices, right? And when we're moving data, we're doing another volume attachment and then using DM clone on top of that. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So just hang on a second. The initialized connection will do three different things. It will just return a remote connector if requested, and that will just use the configured target driver in the underlying LVM driver. So you can use anything that's supported by Cinder, like iSCSI or NVMe over fabrics, will be used to just attach the source volume, and then the clone will just be made on the destination.
Yeah, and conceptually, this was actually this same idea was proposed as the next step for the work I mentioned earlier, where I was adding local attached support to the LVM driver. And I had initially done it as local only, but the proposal was to do exactly that, where if you want to attach it to a remote host, use the target drivers to share it over iSCSI, which sounds like the same thing that's happening here. So that makes
sorry.
So that makes sense, I think, because this I think this same concept we've kind of discussed a little bit before.
Yeah, well, so the addition is that the data gets copied lazily afterwards to the destination. So that's really the main thing. I have one slide which just talks about problems which are definitely going to be there with this approach. If I still have time to, or if we still want to go into this.
Yeah, no, this stuff is this is what the PTG is for. So let's do it.
Okay, so yeah, so one problem I've been made aware of is that Nova doesn't know anything about this new scheduling dimension it has with local storage. So this probably needs to be accompanied by some sort of scheduler filter which has an overview of the available storage and just will allow attachments, or will if you think about volume-backed instances, will schedule those to hosts which have enough available space. Or if you think about live migration, we'll pick a destination host which has enough storage available to hold all the volumes. And then there's the operational challenge. If you want to attach further volumes to your instance, then this might exceed the available space on the instance host. So it might not be possible, and currently there's no way to communicate the reason for this failure, or the reason for this failure to the user. So it would just fail more or less silently. I think this can only be mitigated on an operational level, where you just monitor the available disk space and limit the volume size. Unfortunately, per volume gigabytes, the quota is not available for volume types, I think. So
could you mix and match? Could you have a root volume that is migrated and local to the instance, and an attached volume that remains remote and doesn't DM clone to the local instance?
You mean like transparently switch methods? If there's not available space, don't attach it locally, and don't DM clone it and just attach it remotely.
Yeah, I'm wondering how those two ideas will coexist, and how we're going to we're going to handle that, because we're going to be able to have sort of two modes. We're going to have our normal mode where we create a volume on any host and then remotely attach it, or now we would be able to use, we could create a volume and then DM clone it to where it needs to live. Both would work. Both can coexist. And I'm wondering, like, you thought about like what the rules would be or how those things would be. I could see it being quite confusing as an admin to try to sort out, to try to wrap your mind around the available free space and where these volumes are and which ones are subject to which rules. It's hard for me to keep it in my mind right now. I'm wondering. I'm mostly just thinking out loud.
The thing I fear most about this approach is that it might break the expectation of the user. So I might get, if I want to attach another volume, I might, and I expect this to be local by the volume type, but I might get a remote attachment in the case of there not being enough space on the destination. But I expect the performance of a local storage then, and I cannot, and it cannot be communicated to the user. Then that might lead to, yeah, or a lot of confusion, I think. So I'm not sure if this is the best approach to this problem.
The whole notion of the scheduler not knowing available space, does that mean that available space on a particular host is not pre-allocated and set aside for the purposes of these local volumes?
Well, they are allocated on volume creation, right?
No, not on volume creation. I mean, like the pool from which volumes can be created.
Yeah.
Or is it just a land grab? You know, just take whatever disk space you can get a hold of on the host.
No. So as I said, I've based this on the Cinder LVM driver, and so you can set the volume group you want to use, and that's just it will just be the basic create volume action of the Cinder LVM driver.
Right. Okay.
Just one simple addition, that it will also create another linear target on top of that created logical volume.
Mm-hmm.
But so you might have thin provisioned pools there which you can extend, but so it could always be possible to that someone requests a volume which just wants more space than is available on the host.
I have a couple of.
In the case of the volume being attached, so that's when it needs to be moved, and then the driver will try to create a new volume on the destination, and that will fail. So that will fail within the driver, and it will raise an exception in Cinder, but this will not bubble up to the user. So it will just the action will just fail.
So on this, if you do an attachment that involves migrating the volume data with the mclone, the attachment operation, I think, has to wait for that hydration process to complete before it can actually say that it's attached and done, right?
Well, I think that kind of would be the purpose of the DM clone target, because the added value is that you can immediately use the clone target as a volume, and it will just lazy in the background.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how we manage this from. So when you are migrating with DM clone, I think there's 2 volume attachments at that point.
Yeah, so there's let me just quickly jump to the initialized connection, because so as I said, when there's the connection is initialized on the volume host in the Cinder volume service, which is like Cinder does for the migration. It will create a new volume on the remote host, and that's just the LVM volume drivers create volume plus another linear target on top, and then there's going to be, as I said, some more required. Sorry.
So there's two attachments, but it's one attachment on each volume because there's two volumes.
Right. So there's going to be a local attachment returned in the end, and there's going to be an attachment for the connection to the source volume, which creates an attachment. And actually, I use that attachment because it tracks the connection information, so that the connection might be disconnected later from another method in the driver.
Okay. Okay, well, I think that handles the concern I had around, I was worried that we were trying to leave open this transfer operation while Cinder no longer knew about it. But it sounds like, so something in this driver is monitoring to see when DM clone finishes, and then it deletes the source volume at that point.
Right. So there's a periodic job created on initialization of the driver, and that just goes through all the volumes of this volume service, and checks whether some are in a state of active hydration, and then it will just check the clone target whether the hydration is actually finished. And then it will, just clean up, load the linear target, and then remove all the, disconnect the remote connection, and then remove the metadata volume, and and then also delete the source volume. And that source volume, I've put it into maintenance while there's while it's the hydration is ongoing. So there's no so that you can't mess with it.
Okay.
So
another thing, yeah, go ahead, Rajat.
Yeah, so I had one concern. I can see a clear deployment impact for this. So since during the live migration of the volume, we need connection to the old volume as well, which reside in two different compute nodes. So we need a storage network path between the computes. And that's not like the traditional Cinder volume deployment, because most of the time the storage is external. So it doesn't require like communication between the compute nodes. So that is one deployment impact. I'm not sure how deployment tools are going to handle that.
Yeah, so you will need connection, or you will need some sort of network used for as a storage network between the hypervisors. I think.
Yeah, that will have an impact on performance as well. So maybe if it's slow. I mean, we need to document this kind of scenario. That was my concern.
Yeah. I mean, you can use a dedicated network for that. So to mitigate the performance impact on other network connections.
Although your traditional storage network may not see much activity if everybody's using local disks.
Well, it does see activity once you attach volumes, or you live migrate instances, or.
Oh, sure. I'm just saying that, traditionally, if you've got Nova on host 1 accessing volumes on host 1, it's not consuming any bandwidth of the storage network because it's all local.
Right. Yes.
So you said the base of this driver, as far as how it's actually handling the storage, this is using the LVM driver, and so we're using LVs in the same way the LVM driver does.
Right. So one thing about the clone target is that it doesn't support specifying offsets for different linear tables, or for different tables. So you cannot directly replace any linear target with that. So it just lives on. So I've just it just lives on top of any other device. So I've been just using the LVM driver for its dynamic volume creation using LVM2.
Okay.
And well, there's some things like create or create export, which are pretty similar to the LVM driver, but not quite. So there's some re-implementation of certain things which maybe could be, if made more configurable, could be used from the LVM driver.
Is this thin provision LVM, or does it need to be thick? Or
it doesn't really matter, because the underlying block device created it can be any block device. So if you have a thin provision pool, you can just create a thin provisioned logical LV. If not, then that's fine too.
Well, for Cinder LVM stuff, we really tell people to just use thin. We still support the thick stuff, but there's no good reason to use it, and it has a bunch of downsides. So that should be okay.
It shouldn't matter. I'm not sure if I've tested it really, but it shouldn't matter, because it doesn't really matter what kind of device it is. So
yeah. Other things to check would be if the DM clone layer supports discard, like SCSI discard operations, because some people will care about that, and that gets mapped into the instance in some cases. And definitely, yeah.
It does support discard. It just gets passed down, I think, and it will also not hydrate any regions that have been discarded. So if you issue and discard on the clone target, and that and there's certain you discard data which would still need to be transferred to the destination, then that's just not gone. So that's then it's going to be marked as being local in the metadata.
Yeah, and I guess I'll also just mention, I mean, I'm sure you'll run Tempest tests and everything, but make sure you test volume encryption in general, because that will be another device mapper layer on top of the clone layer, which should all work fine, but just to make sure that's robust.
I don't think I've specifically tested that yet, but it should work, I think.
I saw in one of the slides that the extend operation is not supported. Like LVM does support it, but I think it's a limitation of DM clone.
Yeah, right. So you can extend the volume, but not while it is being hydrated. So you cannot extend the device mapper clone target while it is. Oh well, you just cannot extend it, because it does. There's some reason I just can't remember right now. It has something to do with the metadata table not being able to be updated, and that's so it cannot be extended while it is a clone target. So that's another thing about this, that some actions will, in general, they will work, but they won't work all the time, and that's also not going to be visible to the user. So maybe an operator just live migrated the instance, and all the volumes are hydrating on the destination host, and as a user, you cannot extend the volume at that moment. And that's just going to show us the error for not being able to extend the volume and not giving any reason for that. And later on, it will just work again because
well, there'll be a status that doesn't allow extending anyway, right?
Sorry?
They'll be in a status where Cinder wouldn't try to let an extend happen anyway, I think, right?
Yeah, currently it's a bit of a problem because at the moment I set up the clone target in the create volume method, and from there I can't set the volume into maintenance because the status is set by the Cinder volume service afterwards. So if I create a volume, it ends up and it's the creation works out, then it ends up in an available state all the time. Or if I attach it, it's going to be marked as attached. So there's no way, I think, from the driver side to just set this volume to maintenance during creation or on attachment, which would be, I think, mostly ideal for this sort of thing, so that it would prevent doing any volume actions while it's hydrating, and I think it would be the right thing to do.
Well, there are plenty of operations where, at runtime, if you request the operation, it will throw an error, and say, no, you can't do that to this volume. The volume's still available, but you can't do what you asked to do. So I think there's plenty of precedence for that. From a user experience, the issue really is just that a lot of these operations are asynchronous. You tee up the request to do the operation, and the request is accepted, and then you have to actually go and look at the logs to see why it failed. But the logs should be able to say something to the effect of, I can't extend this volume because I'm still rehydrating it. Yes, the volume's available, but I can't extend.
A user message would be really helpful there.
Yes.
Well, yeah, we're going to need the user message stuff because the way this is proposed currently, we're labeling it as available, but it's not really fully available yet. It's kind of in some different state.
Yeah, Jan, do you know what the user message is?
For which specific case? So when I attach, when I extend a volume?
It's a concept, and so if you're not familiar with it, no would be a good answer right now. We can quickly explain what a user message is.
Yeah, so the answer is no.
Okay, Eric or Rajat, you guys are probably best equipped to provide a good, concise answer.
Well, yeah, the user message, it's a API we have where any operation you do, mostly asynchronous type Cinder operations, we can record a user message in a table that explains why it's being rejected or why it failed. And it's associated with the volume ID and the request ID and those kinds of things, under the premise that a client like OpenStack client or Horizon, when you do one of these operations, can poll for that to give more info back to the user about what's actually happening. I don't know that we really have a good way to create those from inside of a driver, so that might be tricky because I think they'll have to be done by the volume manager, which means potential driver API changes if we need more info. But
so for drivers, what I have seen, or maybe the concept that I remember, is driver can raise a specific exception, and then we can catch it in the volume manager and then create that user message for that specific case.
Right.
So the idea, Jan, is that the user can say, I want to extend this volume. and it's an asynchronous thing. So they issue the request to extend it, and the request is accepted. Then they can go back later on, and the user message would say, "Oh, the extend didn't succeed because the volume is being rehydrated," something to that effect.
Yeah, that sounds like exactly what's needed here.
But there is a specific API for user messages with micro version, I think 3.3, and I have implemented a couple of user messages in backup. We also have some in create, in volume, and snapshots. So maybe you can experiment, like try failing that case and see how the user messages appear on those scenarios. Maybe I can help with that if you need help.
So there would be no need to actually set the volume to a maintenance status while it's being hydrated, because it would be enough to just to use the user message to show that to explain if there's been an error or something that cannot be done.
I would think so, yeah.
That would be safe as well, because a maintenance state, because Nova usually only works on volumes that are in use state. So if we introduce this new state, we might have to make a lot of changes on Nova side as well, which will make it more complex. So I think user messages would be a better solution.
Yeah, it sounds doable. Mm-hmm. I mean, this would also work for other scenarios where currently, if you attach it, a volume, detach it, and then attach it on another instance, then that's probably going to fail because the other instance is probably on another host. So that could also be communicated with the user message. Yeah.
So one situation that I'm thinking about is an evacuate situation where one of the compute nodes goes down and they live migrate. They evacuate all the instances to another compute node, but they don't have access, I think, to the original compute. So I don't know what will happen in that case. Like the original volume will get lost, or how that will be handled.
Well, it's definitely not accessible. So yeah. I mean, how would it be handled if if you have a Cinder volume host with a Cinder volume service which remotely serves volumes, and that goes down, so then it's unavailable. The storage is also, so your volumes will be unavailable then, and this would kind of be the same scenario, I guess.
So if the volume is in an external storage, we just create a new attachment to the new compute host, and the VM can access that. But in this particular case, the storage is local, so if we lose access to the node, then we lose access to the storage as well.
The schedule will report the volume service on that node as being down.
Yeah. I mean, we can document that impact. I was just presenting a case where we could have data loss.
I think that's really the downside for anybody that wants to use this feature, is that there's no HA for the volumes.
Yeah, and it kind of beats the purpose of having local storage if you add HA by replicating the data. Then you
True. Yeah, you just have to pick one. Do you want H8 or do you want fast local storage?
Yeah. I mean, it could be added. I think you could construct some sort of remote mirroring for this, but yeah, so it's not going to be local anymore.
Right.
So Jan, I saw your slide about the motivation, but are there any customers or any people that are requesting this, or is it just something that you like to implement in the code base? Maybe we have some use case scenarios in head, like while developing this, so we can make it based on those requests.
Yeah, so the use case for this is, it came up really when we were using Ceph as a backend and just couldn't get it to be fast enough for stuff like Kubernetes etcd or databases, and usually things which actually are replicated on the application level. So where local storage would actually be acceptable from a data loss point of view, because it's usually the application is highly available and it's replicated. And
the etcd case was the same reason that I was working on local attached stuff as well.
Yeah, it's a problem, I think, for most Kubernetes deployments nowadays, and they usually try to use Nova ephemeral storage, I think, so the etcd is bound to some instances lifecycle, and I think it's not ideal, because it's often it's also now containerized inside other Kubernetes clusters. So you have control planes running inside other Kubernetes clusters. So ideally, you would like to, I think, handle that the same way you would handle the storage for other applications inside a cluster. So yeah, so ideally you would have local storage inside the block storage service and just use that. So, but yeah, so since it's not HA, I see this just as complementary to other storage solutions actually. So for most of the things, you would want to have a proper storage appliance or storage system which is highly available and which holds your data without risk of losing data on loss of a single node. So, but for some applications which just require performance, or some small scale for some small scale deployments which might not want to afford the cost or the complexity of a storage solution, I think this would be a good solution.
So just one question, maybe it's a dumb question. So if for a Kubernetes workload, if we want to provide faster storage for etcd and we have multiple masters, then won't the etcd data should be replicated across different masters? Like they should be in the consistent state, or is it Kubernetes just updating all of them at once?
I think the updates on etcd are synchronous. So it will replicate the update to all the other instances, and then send or acknowledge that it's persisted.
So we might not have an issue then with the cluster, even if we lose one of the nodes. If etcd exists in other nodes, then we still have access to that. So
this is the whole HA is provided at the application layer. In this case, etcd would be considered the application.
Yeah, but
the evacuate case is not as bad then.
So yeah, but the question is whether you want to replicate all the data, if you just want to say recreate the etcd. So well, etcd usually doesn't hold that much data, so you might just you might just do that. But for other databases, it might be a thing you'd want to avoid, to replicate all the data, because it will take time, and you will lose one of the instances. So you are under a higher risk if you can't just stop one application and start it on another node, versus if you stop the application, remove all the data, and then start it on another node, and it has to replicate all the data. So does that make sense?
So when Kubernetes rebuilds, Amazon rebuilds, like if it loses a master node, it tries to rebuild it, and the data that we lose, does it take from the other nodes? Like,
yeah, that should be the case, right?
okay.
Any more questions, at least at the moment? We've got 30 minutes left.
I could talk some more about the snapshot thing, but I don't know if we want to go into that detail yet, right now.
I think that it sounds like the consensus, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like the consensus is if you can meet the fixed requirements for being called a Cinder driver, the things that we can't compromise on, I think there's a lot of interest in seeing this come in. There's probably a lot of fascination in how this works, and I think we probably are all interested in thinking about things in a different way and seeing what we can do with things like that. I think there's more excitement than concern. So unless anyone objects, I think let's create a proof of concept and see how it works, and see if we can work through some of the finer points and issues and get something that is usable. Thanks, Jan. Appreciate you preparing this information and driving this effort.
Well prepared. Thank you.
Yeah, good information. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for listening. So the appropriate next step would be to push some proof of concept code, or to write the spec, or what's required really.
We're gonna need a spec, certainly. I think this is even if it's not technical, if it's built on top of LVM, we don't generally require specs for driver features, but this is having this documented would be really useful, because we're being able to refer to this in something that we can rely on, that won't isn't a web interface like an Etherpad, or a presentation slide deck or something would be useful.
Yeah, it breaks a lot of new territory, which is good, but yeah, it needs to be well explained.
Yeah, and we're going to want to use that. We can translate that into driver documentation later for documentation and explaining things purposes. So it serves multiple purposes. That would be good. I think you'll want to keep your mind towards implementing the minimum set, like the required functions for Cinder drivers, making sure those are in place and working. We're going to need some kind of CI for this, obviously not in the upstream gate, but some sort of non-voting job that we can have a sense of, did we break it? Is it working? That actually, if it's possible to have as far as we can go for testing DM clone and migrating volumes between volume instances, Cinder volume services, and like I guess as much test coverage as we can get is useful. We'll have to have something, because we can't. It's hard to. It will be hard to review this without having some CI feedback on the functionality of that specific code with as much coverage as reasonably possible. So that's something to keep in mind. And a proof of concept would be cool. We can start to wrap all of our minds around it and figure out how this works. We haven't traditionally thought of our Cinder volume model in this way, so it's a little bit different for sure.
So yeah, I've already written up some documentation. I think I can turn that into a spec and can start working from there.
Sounds great. Thank you. All right, it is 30 minutes until 1700. So we have the next on the list is I clustered Steven's topics together. I don't think he's here though, so we're going to tentatively skip that and jump to is Tobias here? Tobias isn't here either. I'll reach out to those folks and try to schedule that and confirm a time for tomorrow, so we can hit those, which moves us to where are we? Tobias is back here, summary API. Actually, so this will skip these 4 topics. We'll go right for reviews for backup service. I think, I can't remember who mentioned this. Maybe Rajat, but Rajat, you were lamenting that getting reviews for backup. Is that true, or am I misremembering?
I think it's still Tobias who is worried this topic.
Nonetheless, though, there seems to be a well, review bandwidth is challenging as it is, but it looks like Cinder backup is sadly gets even less attention than Cinder proper. So I think there's just a call for awareness of Cinder backup and its need for reviews. I thought Brian had a dashboard for this, but I have so many tabs. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it in a reasonable amount of time. I'll circle back for this and try to come up with a dashboard, and maybe we can integrate it into sort of a really quick status in the weekly meetings, like new reviews like untouched, and for both Cinder and for Cinder backup, so we can start to see deltas. Maybe if things start to pile up, we can at least get a sense of that. That might be helpful for our a weekly meeting, like quick upfront status. Rajat, do you want to talk about Cinder RBD to Glance RBD optimized?
Sure.
25 minutes.
Yeah, it's not a lot. Just wanted to mention some of the changes that I've done to the spec. So the main limitation for this, so the general idea for this is when we are uploading a volume to image, then we follow a very generic path where we copy all the data. And previously it was using like exporting the volume to directory and then copying via Python code. Eric improved that to remove the export layer. Now it just provides a RBD handle like a file path to Glance, and Glance does the copy from there. But still we are doing the copy chunk by chunk. RBD provides this functionality of copy on write cloning, where we can just create a reference from the volumes pool to the images pool and just use that reference. And it's a very quick copy. I've mentioned in the spec like the time I have tested, how much it takes with the generic path and with this optimized path. So it's pretty fast in that way. There were a bunch of blockers for this, one of them being like RBD not being able to handle the dependencies properly. It was happening even within Cinder with volume snapshots having a bunch of dependency chain, and we were not able to delete some of the resources in that dependency. Eric fixed a bunch of those cases. Even on Glance side, we had some limitations where, so currently when we create a bootable volume from an image, it uses that same path, like the copy on write cloning. And Glance was not able to handle these dependencies properly. So I think we were failing in some scenarios where we were unable to delete a Glance image, which had volumes created from it, which also I think Eric fixed some of them on the Glance side. So mostly, I think I will check again, but I think the dependencies part is well handled. Another limitation was with this RBAC thing, with the service rules. And we have quite a few cases since then that uses this service role and service token. One of them being the attachment delete API, where we request the service token from Nova side, and I think it's a service role is checked in that case. So that is also handled. And the last one being Glance didn't used to report the type of backend it has. So when you query Glance for its backends, it stores. Then it used to provide the name of the stores like fast, slow, something like that. But it didn't used to provide, I think, the name of the store like RBD or Cinder. And I think even the default store that it uses, it didn't used to provide. So Mridula from Glance team has implemented that support in Glance. So I think all of the pieces that were required to make it work are in place at this point. I need to still update my patch to check if the operations still work the same as it used to, and quite a bunch of refactoring required there. But yeah, I just wanted to get this one in because we already support one-way path from Glance to Cinder. So it makes sense to support Cinder to Glance, the same operations. So yeah, that was the general idea of this.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I was looking over your spec a week or two ago. It wasn't obvious to me if we want to leave the dependencies from Cinder volumes to uploaded Glance images, or if some people will want a flatten operation there to break that dependency after the upload is done. One good thing about that is you still offload the IO to the Ceph cluster through the fast path to do the upload. And then if you call flatten afterward, it's all, on the Ceph backend. So I think we may want to consider if there's some downside to having Glance images depend on Cinder volume images. Because there could be, for a lot of people, maybe not. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Like some configuration option to enable flattening or something of that sort on the Glance side to do that. I'm not sure. I haven't checked, but I'm not sure if when we create a bootable volume from an image, Cinder provides that functionality here. So that might be a good addition if it doesn't exist on the Cinder side as well, breaking the dependency from Glance image. So,
well, in the Cinder volume driver for RBD, there's some options that do that kind of thing. And in this one, I think the Cinder RBD driver could do this without having to have an option in Glance to do it. I think.
Okay,
But
so you mean immediately after the operation completes, it tries to flatten it?
yeah, so you do like a clone, and then you can kick off a flatten operation from the Cinder side when you do that. Or we may decide there's not really a strong need to do that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can see. If it's a config option that is tunable, then yeah, maybe it could be helpful for some use case. So yeah, I will consider that. Thanks.
And so I guess this is also, so this will happen when Cinder and Glance are on the same Ceph cluster, and you can do an optimized copy between pools. But if Cinder and Glance are both using completely separate Ceph clusters, it will just fall back to the standard upload path rate.
Yeah, there will be a couple of checks, I think, in this case, the FSID being the main one, and the default for Glance. So right now, I don't think we have a way in the upload volume code to provide the store where we want to upload the image. So the default store for Glance should be RBD. And yeah, as I said, like the FSID should be same. So those checks will be performed and it will fall back to the generic path if it cannot be optimized.
Is the FSID the same if they're in different pools?
I think so, yes. The FSID is for the cluster, but
yep.
I think
check okay. It's worth noting too that somebody over the last week or two has been updating or submitting some patches related to optimizations between Cinder and Glance. I haven't had time to dig through them, but we need to take a look there.
Okay. Yeah, I'm also not aware. I can take a look.
Did you have, if I remember correctly, some code submitted for this a while back?
Yeah, I had a proof of concept that was working, but there has been many changes in the RBD driver since then, so needs update.
Okay. Well, I don't know what else to say about it, but I'll definitely help review and whatever with this since I've been working in this space recently anyway.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Thanks.
All right. Next topic is the state of volume replication. I think Unmesh wanted this to be discussed. I'm not exactly sure what specifically or where he wanted, like what he was hoping the resolution would be. Does anyone have any thoughts or concerns about the state of our replication?
Well, I think there are some drivers and partners that are successfully implementing and using it, right?
Maybe. I don't know.
We haven't talked about it as like a design item at PTGs or anything in a really long time. But I'm pretty sure like Pure Storage and some others are doing it.
Yeah, they definitely are. My take on all of this is, the replication is just part of a much larger chain, and a lot of these other parts fall outside of Cinder. So, you sort of have to map out the full setup replication, and then, fail over, and then falling back, the full life cycle. And, yes, Cinder will take care of replication, but managing all the other pieces become a broader problem.
Alan, let me ask this: based on your view of replication as a general feature, is there anything that we can do in Cinder to improve the state of things?
Well, I seem to recall.
If I could, Eric, just to answer John's question, I actually don't know, because again, it's kind of like you have to think about the whole thing, to repeat myself, holistically, and I haven't done that. So I really don't have an answer to your question.
Well, we need use cases around it, and I think the premise of volume replication, as far as why it was originally created, was for disaster recovery, like loss of site kind of stuff.
Right.
I think, based on what people have said, if you actually have that kind of disaster and you were using Cinder replication, yeah, we have some ability to do failback stuff. I think there may be gaps even in the Cinder failback area, but I don't really know what they are without going and studying it. But there's a kind of like Alan was saying, Cinder being a piece of a big puzzle here. Like, yeah, your data is replicated to another place, but how to actually rebuild your cloud is like not like something you can just push a button and do. How much of that is a problem for Cinder to solve versus other bigger, tools, I'm not really sure.
So I had this discussion about this, and hence this topic came for the PTG. I think the general idea for this topic was to collect vendors' feedback, if their driver supports replication, if some of their customers are using replication with respect to OpenStack or any other technology their storage array supports. So what has been their experience about it? And also one other thing related to this was to test the replication with Ceph, which I'm not sure we are currently doing or not. We have tested the scenario. So those were the main ideas.
Well, I think it was tested with Ceph a few years ago as like a one-off effort. I don't think anyone has done it recently.
I haven't. It worked when I tested it, but it's been quite a while. And it requires, as Alan was saying, it assumes that things are deployed in the correct way, and it cannot tolerate the need for additional setup. It has to be configured correctly. The Cinder driver does not have any logic for handling misconfigured backends or rejected requests for replication from the Ceph cluster. It has to be configured correctly and verified.
Because of course Ceph has its own replication feature.
Yeah. So in this case, it would be, in Ceph parlance, it would be mirroring. You'd mirror from one cluster to the other, so you get your replication within the cluster and then mirroring, across clusters.
But the two concepts are not associated, right? Like, it's not that Cinder replication is same, like that's translated to RBD mirroring. It's a different thing.
It actually is. So replication, when you enable replication on an RBD a Ceph backend, you get what is called RBD mirroring. That's what it is. You get replicas on the Ceph cluster as simply just an artifact of Ceph's design and the configuration of the cluster. But if you lose the whole cluster, then that use case is not handled. So replication in Cinder maps to mirroring in RBD for that particular driver. So you can lose the whole cluster and still have your data in a different cluster if that's what you're needing.
But I thought like the Cinder replication feature points to across clusters, like replication across cluster, as we mentioned, like it's for a disaster recovery use case. So
exactly.
Yeah, the mirroring happening on the Ceph side is within the cluster, and Cinder can enable it across clusters. Like if I have two Ceph clusters, it can enable replication in that scenario.
Right. Yes, absolutely. But there's a little bit of setup required. The two clusters have to have credentials exchanged so that they can communicate with each other and read and write from each other. And the Cinder driver assumes that this setup has occurred. If it has, then the calls to enable mirroring and the mode, all of those things will work. And Ceph then does all the heavy lifting. But what you can't do is just deploy two clusters that don't know about each other and hope that the driver will figure that out and configure it for you. It has to be done at deployment outside of Cinder. But in general, yes, the mirroring is what you get, and that is the feature that gives you Cinder replication for across clusters.
Okay. And one last question I had, like, so the testing was done. I was interested in testing it with like DevStack. I wasn't sure if it will work or not. Like DevStack provides multiple backends to be set up. I think it can create two Ceph clusters locally with different OSDs, monitors. I need to test that, but is it possible, like from a theoretical perspective, or it should have?
Yeah. All you need is two Ceph clusters that are accessible from the DevStack instance, whether it's created by the DevStack Ceph plugin or you use MicroCeph or Ansible to deploy a Ceph cluster. As long as you have just two of them and you have the credentials and the configuration in your ceph.conf, if Cinder can communicate with them and they're configured to mirror between each other, then you can create a volume type for replication. And when you create volumes of the replicated type, the driver will see that and then make the additional calls to the cluster to enable the mirroring on each image. And so, yes, it should be good.
Well, it depends on what you want to test. I mean, that will let you test that the volume driver replicates the data. But if you actually are trying to use replication in a DR scenario,
right,
you're using your Cinder database, you got to have a way to rebuild that. I mean, there's, it's you can probably go test volume replication with Ceph and the Cinder APIs, and you'll find out that that works fine. But I'm not really sure if that tells you a lot that's very useful.
Sorry to jump in.
Yeah.
Actually, I got something going on here, so I'm going to have to drop. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Tom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Eric, my idea is to just test the code path. Like first, it's the replication part, like if the volumes are being replicated, and to emulate the disaster recovery scenario, maybe like, I don't have much ideas, but maybe set one of the Cinder volume services down and perform a failover to see if I can still access the replicated volume. So
yes, that should work.
Yeah, that scenario is in my mind. I know it's very different from an actual cluster where the storage area will be on different sites and everything, but at least it will help test the code if it's working. It's in a working state.
Yes, that should work. You can create them, you can fail over, you can fail back. All of that should. Sure.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks, John, for that.
Raja here. These are notes that I used a long time ago. This is how I set up when I was implementing it. This is how I set it up. So this should take you. This should take you from DevStack, like a completed DevStack deployment. This shows you the steps needed in addition. You could codify these in like a local.sh so that it actually gets done for you. I think I had that at one time, but those are the steps necessary. And then you can see the calls at the end that allow you to actually test the feature, the failover, and all of that. It should be. I don't think anything has changed much in that driver, so those steps should be still accurate.
Thanks, thanks, John. This looks really helpful. Like, yeah, it contains, as I can see, all of the required information. So, yeah, it's a very good starting point. Thanks for that.
All right, we have 4 minutes. There's not enough time to cover another topic. And the topics we have are, well, actually, it's just Stephen Finn and Tobias, and then Eventlet, which I'm hoping we can squeeze into the first hour tomorrow, because we've got some cross-project. We've got 3 cross-project sessions starting at 1500, which may take the whole block. So we'll try to get through those discussion topics in the first hour. And then that leaves Thursday for any overflow. There's a few NetApp things that the NetApp folks were not available for on any other day, but then Friday, I added the possibility to demo Jan's DM clone local storage proof of concept, possibly, or we could do some reviews. So it's kind of a choose your own adventure there, depending on where we're at by Friday. So that's kind of the rough outline of what tomorrow will be. I will reach out to Stephen Finn and Tobias and see if I can get them to confirm that they can cover these topics in the first hour, so we don't run out of time. And I think that's it. Questions, thoughts?
Looks like NetApp is implementing a lot of features this cycle. I don't know if they have the development bandwidth, but we certainly might not have the review bandwidth for it.
That's what I'm saying too. Yeah. Hopefully, maybe they can, maybe they can swap some reviews with other folks and like create a larger pool of bandwidth. Maybe we'll see. We'll bring that. That'll definitely be a topic to raise when we talk about all this.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to end recording then, and I think I'm going to end recording. Yeah. Okay. Here we go.